Danny and I, we spent a lot of time talking about how teams have to build your roster for 162. But then once you're fortunate enough to get in and push into the postseason, the game shifts a little bit, or the style of play shifts a little bit, or the way that you win baseball games, different things are prioritized, and it's almost a different style of play in the postseason. Do you agree with that? Do you think that there are two different kinds of games?
Yeah, I think throughout the course of a season, there's so many games, the ups and downs of games. You tend to look at a more in-depth view of what a player can do, and you start to look at peripherals. Maybe lean on those peripherals a little bit more, because you have the course of the season for the law of averages to even out, right? And then once you get into the playoffs, it's about winning that game and helping your team, in whatever capacity, win that game, win that pitch even. And so you look less into the peripherals or the course of the season to help you win, and wait for things to even out. And you do what you can to win this ball game, whether it be small ball, a reliever going multiple innings. You're just trying to, every out matters, and however you can get those outs, you're going to do it to help your team advance. And so I would say, there's a difference in how you set up your roster and how you manage the game. And there's a mentality switch too from the player's perspective.
And I thought what's interesting too, congratulations, first of all, for being part of that Reds push into the postseason. And what I was saying earlier before we got on is that really the Reds postseason really started before the postseason, right? Because those games in September, it comes down to like your scoreboard watching down to the very last game just to try to get into the postseason. So you're really playing a version of the postseason in the last few weeks leading up to the playoffs. Like that was true this year in particularly.
Right.
Does that impact you when you get into the postseason? Is there a certain level of fatigue that causes like getting into the postseason?
I would think it impacts you in a better way, right? Because you're already in that mindset. And teams that we've seen it with a bunch of different teams that play in that wild card round. If they get hot in that wild card round, they make a deep run. We were playing playoff games that whole month of September, and every game mattered, and we didn't have any wiggle room, to lose. Every pitch, every game was important to us, and so I personally, it helps you. You want that momentum, and it didn't work out for us this year, but you want that mindset, and you can call it what it is. Maybe we were burnt out, but I didn't feel that way. I felt like we had a pretty good mindset and energy going into it, and then once you get in, there's that next level. The excitement of being in the playoffs can really help a team, propel into the next round.
Something here from fans is like playoff experience. You are someone who has, throughout your career, not only here in America, but just the international stage, playing at the biggest stages. Do you feel you're a different pitcher now at the postseason level, having gone through that, or is it just baseball?
Yeah. We talked a little bit, before we got started here about, my timing of getting to, Major League postseason. And my first playoff experience of my life was in the NPB, and I pitched in the first round of the playoffs. My first year, it was an elimination game and of that first round, and I think that's definitely helped me prepare, at least mentally, right? Of the feeling that you get in pitching those extra, let alone an elimination game, right? And so, that's definitely helped me. And I think with each year of reaching the postseason, you grow and mature, and you begin to know what it takes to play not only the first round of the playoffs, but every round after that. And I've yet to reach the World Series, and I imagine that's a whole different level in itself. But it's not always going to go well. Like my postseason run this year, I didn't have a good game, but I was in a good place mentally and physically, where it's easier to swallow that, and that I think will propel me and help me for my next playoff appearance. And so it's also a message that I was sending to our young guys that didn't have the experience in the playoffs, and our young guys played tremendous in the playoffs. Spence had a great playoff run. Sal Stewart, getting called up September, making an immediate impact in the playoffs. Those guys, and then also Chase Burns, just getting drafted last year, and he threw 2 innings. Doesn't matter what the score is in the playoffs. Every inning matters. That you're going to feel that pressure, and those guys, they showed up. And when I was telling these guys going into the playoffs is, getting this feeling, understanding what it takes to get to the playoffs, right? Because we essentially grinded.
Yes, you did.
Fought tooth and nail to get into the playoffs. You now know what it takes to get into the playoffs, and then those guys specifically know what it takes to win at the playoffs, and that helps your career tremendously, right? And it's also important to note that obviously everyone wants to do well in the playoffs, and it's not always the case. Someone's gonna do bad, right? Win or lose. So it's just understanding, regardless of the outcome, you're going to understand what it takes to compete at this new level of baseball. And that can help your career. It can help your mind. Like the game should, and it will slow down for these guys for the rest of their careers. They're going to know, they just played a high level of baseball. The regular season, less panic starts to set in. Okay, there's a long season. I know what I'm playing for. I know what I got to do to get my body and my mind ready to play in these playoff games.